What's up? Yo. Yo. Hey, yo. Last week, the sideman dropped a video and KSI used a word that he probably shouldn't have.
Look, we need points in it, all right? I don't mean this maliciously, but the word. I'm sorry. We need points. I definitely didn't run it. Guys, come on.
And obviously it was met with a ton of laughter and everyone kind of played it off. They muted it or they bleeped it out and everyone kind of went on with their days. Why is English so friggin' hard today? And yeah, it was met with a ton of laughter. Everyone kind of knew he said a word that he probably shouldn't have. Even he kind of acknowledged that he shouldn't be saying the word. To be fair, even when I saw the clip, I was like, yeah, he probably shouldn't have gone there. And, you know, I can't believe he went there. But I didn't think there was going to be too big of a reaction. And that probably speaks more to my own upbringing in Brampton, which is a predominantly Punjabi brown city. I mean, it's not to say that we didn't have racism, but post 9/11, all I heard was
Osama bin Laden.
Bin Laden or Taliban. But that word in general, just not something we heard too often here. So that word just didn't evoke the same sort of response it did from people here as it did in the UK. And I was really curious as to what that word's weight for people in the UK is. So it was definitely more of a learning experience for me while I dived into other people's stories and just how weighted that word was. Because we always heard stories about like our parents' generation and maybe a little bit over that. But for the people in the UK, this word is still present. It's still heavily used. It's still pretty degrading, and it still evokes quite the emotional response from even people growing up now, you know. And I was curious how this really still affects people in the UK and what the response was from, you know, the UK side of things and how UK Punjabis and Sikhs were responding to it. So I put a message out to my community, got a response back from Juggy95, and he sent me some links of some predominant Punjabis and South Asians, and I think it's worth sharing some of their stories in this and just kind of going through what they thought, because honestly how the word affects me I don't think really matters in this case, because like I said, we as a community out here just didn't feel that same sort of wrath and still don't. But what it does is it does evoke and it does have an impact on the community there. So like first up, it was Inquisitive who posted about it, and he had this picture that he posted with it, and then he had a pretty decent description of it, and I thought I'm gonna just share his thing in full, what he wrote, which was, my work is not a reflection to personally target someone or defame them, but something has not been sitting right with me for the last few days, and despite ignoring it and telling myself it's not worth painting on, it is. With a recent video, second post of KSI laughingly saying a racial slur, it put many of us in a bad place. The racial slur is the word Paki. It's being part of many South Asians' journey, especially growing up in the UK. It comes with racial, physical, and mental abuse. Paki is a term I've grown up hearing and being called, from being a kid to a 16-year-old being left unconscious on the Central Line train, waking up 6 stops after hospitalized, to the countless times waiting for a train to get to college at Romford as an 18-year-old. Why? Because of my brown skin. It's something that has never left me, and even now still has its effect hearing it again. I was going to post a picture of myself back then, but this isn't about me. So I don't take it lightly at all, and I'm glad so many other people across social media feel the same way I do. Guz Khan official has been tweeting so much truth on this, and I stand with him. And if you need to read even more stories about this 4-letter slur, take a look at the heartbreaking post from my brother Sukhanite tragically losing his own father with the same language and hate. It really isn't a joke. An apology will come out and Sally will be forgotten, but for so many of us South Asians, it's not just a word, it's a reminder that that word is still treated so lightly as though it's just part of the color palette. As my illustration showcases, be you Sikh, Muslim, or Hindu, you're all under the same color chart, and for many of us it takes us back to a place we try to leave behind. As for the rest of the bunch laughing and cheering in the video, it'd be a completely different take if it was said in front of someone else. I guarantee it, it's not banter. I mean, holy shit, I had no idea this guy got friggin' beat unconscious for it. Dude got friggin' beat up in a train. Fuck. Here's Sukhanite's post, which was a screenshot of a news clipping from back in the day, 1989, and it says, shopkeeper killed trying cut off youth's jibe over death. A teenager who bragged after killing an Asian shopkeeper, oh well, that's another Paki gone, has been sentenced to 3 years of detention. Oh shit, only 3 years. Lee Lamberth, 16, of Hartsworth Close, Plastow, remarked later to a friend, there are enough of them up in Upton Park, it should be called Paki Park. His indifference to the death of Kulwinder Singh Uppal, 26, led to his arrest. The Old Bailey heard on Friday. His friend Lloyd Evans shopped him. Have a go, hero. Mr. Uppal gave chase after Lambeth, and another shoplifter stole 2 pairs of jeans and a shirt from his Green Street shop. Mr. Uppal of Chadwell Heath hurled himself at the getaway car and clung on as Lambert accelerated, but Lambert deliberately swerved to loosen the shopkeeper's grip, said the prosecutor Linda Stern. Mr. Opel fell, hitting his head on the curb in Penn Road. I don't know what that says. He was dead on arrival at the hospital. You know, obviously not even that long ago, 1989. Guy's father was killed. And people were just laughing about it, like, yeah, fuck, it's just a Paki. And here's another story, Rhea, who says, when I was 6, a gang of boys would throw eggs at our house, shouting that word every day. Every day I watched my grandma clean eggs off our windows just to do it again the next. When I was 13, a girl at school said that all Paki should go back to their own country and take their corner shops with them. It was on the school bus when I brought it up. She said I was a liar. When I was 15, a man threw a beer can at my granddad and shouted that word at him. He got injured. He had blood running down his forehead from where it hit him. I won't forget how he looked when he came home. When I was 16, a boy at 6th form said I'm a Paki who should go back to Sparkbrook where I belong. I had never spoken to him. Being there 2 weeks, everyone said I should ignore it and that it was just the way he was. When I was 17, a boy at school described how he punched that Paki taxi driver when he asked him to pay at the end of the journey. Private school rich guy could have paid. He laughed as he told the story. So yeah, man, seems like there's still a lot of violence happening, and clearly it's just not a joke and it's not something that should be taken as lightly. And yeah, I was like reading The Three Houses from a personal friend, Colin Dillon, and I remember he wrote about, you know, his own experiences growing up, and I thought, you know, that must have been back in the day, but like all these stories, not that back in the day, even his stuff, when I say back in the day, that was just 80s and 90s racism that he was growing up in. So I asked him, I reached out to him and I was like, yo, can you help explain what the impact of KSI using this word is to UK people and even yourself who face such racism and wrote about it? This is what he had to say.
Maybe it's not the fact that the word got used. Maybe it's more about the reaction from everyone else that was in the room. The fact that when the word was used, everybody else just simply laughed. Nobody thought to change their expressions. Nobody thought that the word required a more serious approach. It was as if it was a big joke and it was funny and it was okay. And I think that is what's wrong with that P word. Look, growing up in the 70s and the 80s, we were all Ps. Didn't matter what religion you were from, which part of the world in the South Asia you came from, which country you came from. Everybody was a P. And it goes through you. It went through me. You know, I wrote about it. I wrote about it in my book, The Three Houses. The effect it had on me growing up, the effect it still has on me. I'm fortunate here in Canada, I've not actually had the word thrown at me, but back home in the UK, I think it just signified what KSI did and how it was accepted and how, I think, socially it wasn't challenged. Yes, we challenged it. People of colour challenged it. But I think what was disappointing about it was the fact that it was a person of colour that used it, one. And two, they didn't edit it. How do you not edit that out? How does your team allow that to continue to go through? And so, look, it's not the N-word. We can't compare it to the N-word, but we can say it is a racial slur which goes deep with South Asian community members.
Look, and now the intent of this video is never to try and cancel KSI, and I'm confident from the original video, KSI realized that, you know, the word was offside. But, you know, rather it was just to talk about the gravity and lived experience that word still carries for people today, even if it isn't my own. And to his credit, or his PR teams, you know, they're doing the rounds, they're going to the mosques, Gurdwara, and they're talking to South Asian leaders, and they're, you know, properly trying to make amends about, you know, yeah, you're right, it wasn't banter, we shouldn't have made a lighthearted thing about it. And I'm gonna link his video at the end of this. And I guess even for me, you know, this whole thing was a learning experience of just how prevalent the word still is in, you know, the last 15, 20 years. And, you know, not wanting to just brush it under the rug of, yeah, you know, they need to get over it. I think UK men, South Asians everywhere, you know, should stand up to stuff like this and stand up to racism like this all over the place, because when left unchecked, man, this shit gets wild. So, you know, be nice to each other. I'm gonna link KSI's apology at the end of this, so hopefully he's a better person out of this, and everyone in that video is too. Peace.
First of all, I want to address a recent incident in a video whereby my actions have affected many people, especially in the South Asian community. I want to take this opportunity to offer my deepest and most sincere apologies for my words and actions. In a recent video, I used a racial term that is offensive to so many, especially in the South Asian community. There are no excuses for what I said, and I recognize I've caused a lot of hurt and disappointment to so many people that look up to me. And my ignorance has only reinforced the negative stereotypes that have existed for way too long in this country. I want to express my heartfelt regret for what I said, and I want you to know that I am genuinely ashamed and deeply sorry for any pain or suffering I have caused.